loyalty is all about being there. Day in, day out. So AAA thanks you for being there with loyalty rewards. Like when you get savings on AAA auto insurance just for being a AAA member. And when you switch to AAA auto insurance, you could save more based on how long you've been a AAA member and how long you've had your current insurance. Insurance that's not just insurance. Learn more about AAA auto insurance and loyalty rewards. Click now or visit AAA.com/insurance.
Hello there and welcome into week 6 of the NFL season. Back after missing last week, I'm back here in the saddle. You can follow me on Twitter at Colby Conway, and back again for another edition of the Prop It Like It's Hot podcast, which is a proud member of the full-time podcast network, is Bob Long on Twitter at Bob_Long. So Bob, Saturday morning, I'm back after missing last week and not winning a clutch game, so how are we doing?
Yeah, you and me 2 weeks in a row had to fly solo, which worked out okay. It's all good. But yeah, we're back here together. I do want to do a shout out here for one of our, I'll call them sponsors, I guess, Fantasy Go. If you guys hadn't had a chance to get out there and use that, Fantasy Go is a really cool site. It's almost like a Uber for your fantasy football team. So if your team's struggling, you need some help, you've sent out some Twitter requests and nobody seems to be responding. It may cost a few dollars. I get that, but you can go out to fantasygo.com and find Colby. Colby, I'm pretty sure you're on there, right? You're an analyst. I'm an analyst. And you can use it for DFS. That's a cool thing. So they've added DFS to it, so you can ask Colby for the DFS questions. There's a chat room now built into the once you get linked up with an analyst like myself or Colby, you can upload your screenshots of your DFS team, and Colby can help you with that. And we can both help you with your season-long league. I just helped a guy this week. He said he was struggling. The amazing thing was I thought his team was actually pretty good. So I think he's had a little bit of bad luck, a little bit of inconsistency. So, we took out some inconsistent players, put in some consistent players. But it's pretty marginal. I think it's about anywhere from $5 to $10 for the week to have an analyst like us help you out. And if you're in, the best thing to do is if you're in a Yahoo league, we can actually get into your Yahoo league and literally can make changes for you. So you don't even have to think about it. If you're in a different, ESPN or something like that, you can do the screenshots, upload it into the chat, and we can do it from there. So super cool. Make sure you try it out, fantasygo.com, and pick Colby or I, and we can help you out this week for small dollars, but enough that, makes it worth your while that we can help you win some money by the end of the year, especially DFS. So just want to throw out that shout out. But yeah, all right, let's get back into the props.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, Fantasy Go, great site, and as Bob mentioned, him and I are both on there, so we can certainly help you out. But we can also help you out with prop bets for this week. So if you are into, maybe you don't want to play money lines and over-unders in terms of teams and try to hit parlays, you can just go ahead and try to stack up a couple wins with these player props, and that's what Bob and I are here to help you with using the prop bet consistency tool over at bigguyfantasysports.com, and you can use promo code PROPBET to get $5 off your VIP subscription so that you can get all of the great content over there well beyond just the prop bet consistency tool. But it's been a couple weeks, so we'll do a quick refresher about how this podcast is typically run, but we'll go couple players here with their player props and what the system says, typically right around 50%, so Bob and I can chip in our opinions there. Then we'll get into what the system likes in terms of a good over bet for the week and a good under bet for the week. And then, of course, everyone's favorite part, Bob's best bet of the week and my best bet of the week. So we'll start here with the system says, but we say, and I believe we are using the lines provided over at Thrive, if I'm correct with that. Right,
yeah,
Bob?
So over at thrivefantasy.com, a really cool game that you can play with prop bets and win some money. And I've been doing that quite frequently as well. But if you use the promo code, if you get in there, you're a new user, promo code BGFS, they will give you an extra $10 added into your deposit. So as long as you deposit at least $10. So you can double your money right off the bat, use that, and win some cash and be all well worth, and pretty much pay off your VIP subscription for $14.99 with the discount. So definitely get out there and do that for sure.
Absolutely. So the first player we'll go with here, And the first line we have Cincinnati running back Mr. Joe Mixon. Thrive set his line at 62.5 rushing yards. And in a 2-game sample, of course, to make this segment, he is at a perfect 50% in terms of the overhitting. So where are you leaning at with Joe Mixon? And then also, since we are going to be using Thrive here, Thrive is one of you have a bunch of props there, and you get to pick 10, and then you have 2 emergency picks. So we'll go with this. Joe Mixon, 62.5 rushing yards. What are you thinking there, and are you confident enough to make that one of your coveted 10 selections?
Yeah, it's a good call. Good question. I mean, here's the thing. He started off a little bit slow this year. Last 3 games, 93 yards last week, but against Arizona at home. This week he's playing away against Baltimore. The last 2 away games, he played Pittsburgh and Buffalo, which are pretty decent, defense, especially Buffalo. He put up 61 and 62, obviously very, very close to the 62.5. This is a divisional game. These are always some good games, good punching them out type games. So I expect them to try to use Mixon as much as possible. So I'm going to take the over, but I think he could hit like maybe 65. I'm not going to go way over. I'm going to say he should make it, but it's going to be close. I would probably rather just skip this one, to be honest with you.
Yeah, this is one I am leaning towards avoiding. You look at the recent history for Mixon against Baltimore, and with volume, he's been okay. So, in 2018 in week 2, 21 carries for 84 yards, and back in week 17 of 2017, 18 for 96. However, those other 2 games, which was week 1 of 2017 and week 11 of 2018, he had a combined 20 carries for 23 yards. The Cincinnati offensive line is bad, we can say, and I can get to this later when I talk about Lamar Jackson a little bit, but this game could go very quick. Cincinnati wants to run the ball, whether it's a tie game or they're down 20. We just saw it against Pittsburgh, I believe it was, on Monday Night Football. They're down by 15, 16 points in the third quarter, and they're still running the ball. I don't know if Zach Taylor just wanted to get out of there and just try to get to next week, but Mixon should see volume in this one. This is one where I agree with you about. I don't think his stat line overall is going to be great. However, he could get 20 carries and get 63 rushing yards, which is a really bad game, but the over hits here. I'm avoiding this one. I would actually lean the under, but yeah, this will not be one of my coveted 10 that I need to get me a bunch of points so I can win some money.
Definitely not.
Next one, we'll go to the wide receiver position before we come back to the running back position, actually. We're going to go with Michael Thomas, 80.5 receiving yards. He has a 4-game sample. The over is hit 50% of the time going up against Jacksonville, and as far as I know, Jalen Ramsey is probably questionable. I off the top of my head, I don't remember if I've seen anything.
Is that a double negative? Probably questionable.
He might might play. So we'll have to see. But obviously that is a big factor in all of this. But at face value, here we go. We'll assume, considering Ramsey hasn't played the last 2 weeks, he just had a child that he is involved in the picture, and then who knows if he's going to play. He wants out of Jacksonville, so we'll see here. But Michael Thomas, 80.5 receiving yards, same thing as Mixon. What are you leaning with here, and will this be one of your coveted 10 selections?
Yeah, you know what? Right now, Teddy Bridgewater is definitely in sync with him. I mean, he has slowed down. In fact, if anything, he's picked up since Bridgewater took over. Last week, 182 receiving yards at home against Tampa Bay. I get it. It's Tampa Bay. It's not Jacksonville. 95 yards against Dallas at home. He's only had 1 game this year that he hasn't been over 80.5 receiving yards. So I'm going to take the over, and I think I took this one as one of my picks. So yeah.
Yeah, I still haven't actually made my picks quite yet. So I am still waiting to see what I'm going to do here. I'm leaning the over, and I am leaning on this being one of my 10 picks, and here's the reason why. So Jalen Ramsey has missed the last 2 weeks, and when he's missed in these last 2 games, so some bigger receivers. So Emmanuel Sanders had 5 for 104. Cortland Sutton had 6 for 62, and he actually scored twice. And then when you look for Carolina, when Ramsey missed this game as well, McCaffrey was involved, but DJ Moore had 6 for 91. So we have some track record of, wide receiver ones for their team putting up over 80 against Jacksonville without Jalen Ramsey. So I'm certainly interested in hearing Michael Thomas. Like you mentioned, at this point, I think he has entered quarterback-proof territory, and he's putting up numbers. He's going to be just fine. Drew Brees comes back hopefully soon, but even so, even with Teddy Bridgewater, he's gotten 22 targets over the past 2 weeks. He's remained efficient with those targets. I'm leaning the over, and I am leaning in selecting Thomas as one of my 10 plays this week. We'll go back to the running back position here, and this one's interesting for a couple of reasons. I'll let you start here because I can still be swayed in my thinking here. But Melvin Gordon, 82.5 total yards, so rushing plus receiving. 7-game sample, the over has hit 57% of the time, and that could be a little misleading just because most of those games haven't come post-holdout. So, Melvin Gordon, what are you thinking here, Bob?
I know for sure that I did not touch this one just because it really is questionable because, he came last week, didn't do much in that game. Eckler, the game flow went totally away because they got down very early, very quickly. So the game flow forced them to throw the ball more, and Austin Eckler ends up with 15 receptions. So Gordon didn't get anywhere near 82.5 total yards last week. This week, though, they're playing a Pittsburgh team who I think is down to their third-string quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. So, I could see them running the ball a lot, controlling the clock, not having to throw as much. I don't expect Pittsburgh to jump off to a big league and force them to throw the ball more. So I probably am not going to touch it, but if I had to pick it, I would probably pick the over just because I feel like he will get enough volume running the ball this week. They're going to obviously continue to give him more carries. They shouldn't need Eckler as much in the passing game. So I feel like Gordon could get both. But the problem is I feel like he's going to get mostly rushing yards. So that's where it becomes a problem. I don't know how much receiving he's going to get. I think he did catch 3 or 4 balls last week. So he's certainly involved. So if I had to pick, I would take the over, but I'm not including it in my 10.
I'm avoiding this one, and I do think. See, this is where it gets interesting. I'm not quite sure where to project his total yards. He did only play 46% of the offensive snaps last week, yet he had 12 carries and 6 targets. And you were right, he did catch 3 or 4 balls. He caught 4, only for 7 yards. So he played 32 offensive snaps last week and had 12 carries and 6 targets. So basically, he was involved in 18 of those 32 snaps. That's an immense workload. So volume alone, in theory, should push him north of that 82.5 total yards. But my thing here with Thrive, and I'll see if you feel the same way. So I'll take a look at all of our metrics that we, my thinking, what the prop bet consistency tool says, and kind of what we talk about here. And the first thing I'll do is I'll go find the matchups I like the best, and I'll see which ones give me an edge on Thrive. So, for example, here we're looking at. Let me see if I can get a good one here. So we'll use Melvin Gordon here. So I'm looking at it here, 82.5 total yards. The over is 95 points. The under is 105 points. So I think the over is going to hit. I don't think Gordon's going to be great, but I think that over hits. So I kind of use 100 points as my baseline, and that puts me just underneath that. So that's one where I'm almost inclined to kind of avoid it, because I want to find where I can get at least 100 points per selection and still be within my realm of,
comfortability,
favoriteness. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, right.
So like a good example here is, we talk about Michael Thomas, 80.5 receiving yards. His over is 100 points. His under is 100 points. I'm pretty sure he's going to hit that over. I'm getting my 100. I really like that. So that's one I'm going to pick. That could just be me. I don't know if you kind of have that same line of thinking, or if you're just going to pick your 10 best picks regardless of points.
I kind of do what you do for the first group of picks, to try to get both maximization of the comfortability, from the system, and myself agreeing with the system that this is a good pick, and I'm going to get, like you said, around 100 points or higher. Because you'll get some slam dunks, but it'll be 80 points, and you're like, I don't know. So that's usually, then I'll usually get down to probably the last 2 or 3 picks, and then go, okay, now I've got these that I feel pretty good with bigger points. Now what should I pick this guy like like you said, like a Joe Mixon, where it might be 100, or am I going to go and take the 80, 90 points for the slam dunk Deshaun Watson over 1.5 touchdowns, which may only be 80 points, but it's 80 points, and the idea, of course, score the most points. So that's kind of how I look at it too, and so far that's been pretty successful. But really, what has been, I think, when I look at the weeks that I've won, money, especially the week I won big money when I won it all and won $500, was picking the ones that are the big unders, and you get like Deshaun Watson. Obviously, I'm not going to take the under, but if there's a pick that looks like the slam dunk is the over, and they're only giving you 80, but they're giving you like 120 or 140 on the under, if the system shows that, hey, this is a good reason to take the under, that's where I've been having some success of grabbing that under that most people don't believe in, and hitting that and getting that 140 points instead of the other way. So that's worked out well too. So it's definitely a look at each one, but yeah, I'm kind of doing the same way you are with a little twist in there as well.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, you can go in there and you can really point hunt, and you can kind of like, all right, this is 130, I'm taking that one, and
right.
You can take all those, and you can have 1,300 possible points.
Right.
However, if you only get 3 right, you're not going to win. So,
right.
I guess the right thing here is use everything we talk about here to maybe find those couple advantages, and if you want to take a couple safety picks in like the Deshaun over, that makes sense. Get your 80 points, because more often than not, he's going to hit that. So I get that. And at some point, if you want to win money on there, it's just like any site. You're going to have to take a risk somewhere.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
and the nice thing is,
yeah.
Yeah. And the nice thing is that you can do multiple entries. So let's say you're really torn on a couple picks. You might do one where you lock your 8 in, and then take, this way on some of them and this way on the other ones. And, maybe one of them, maybe the one will click through and win you the big money. The other one might cash, may not, but, it's only $20 to enter. So.
Right. Absolutely. And there's obviously there's cheaper ones too. I'll do that $25 one you talk about, and then I also do a couple little $5 entries too, because you never know. Sometimes you can get those to hit as well. But what we'll do here, that's the system says, but we say basically part of this podcast. So what we'll do now, we're just going to jump in here for what the system says is a strong over bet for the week, in meaning that there's a good sample size and there's a very definitive trend, we can say here, with a certain player. So what we'll do here, the one I looked at this week from what the system said, Julio Jones has a line of 92.5 receiving yards. He's coming off a bit of a clunker against a Houston defense that I thought he would do much better against. But in a 9-game sample size, he does have, or the over has hit 78% of the time. So Julio Jones, 92.5 receiving yards. Do you agree with this, Bob? And then also, is this one that you'll be making a selection for on Thrive?
I want to believe in it, but I think most of the numbers are from 2018. And so, when I look at 2019, he's only went over 92 yards twice out of 5 games. Once against Philadelphia at home and once on the road against Indiana. They've really been spreading the ball around a lot recently. Austin Hooper's involved. Ridley, Mohamed Sanu is, if I'm not mistaken, has an 80% consistency rate. He's ahead of Julio Jones. So they're definitely moving the ball around a lot. And so that's good for them trying to win a football game. It's bad for Julio Jones owners who are trying to win fantasy games. So to be honest with you, I'm not going to go with the system. I probably would actually take the under, because again, if I'm not mistaken, this is one of these where you can get some big points on the under. And I think I did take the under here.
Yep. So the last time Julio faced off against the Cardinals, 2018, actually, let me start with this. First career against the Cardinals, he averages 84.8 receiving yards per game. So we'll start there. However, when you look at Julio Jones against this Cardinals team, last year he did put up 6 for 82, and I believe that was with Patrick Peterson covering him. But other games against them, yes, he had 189 yards back all the way back in 2014, but he was held to 33 and 35 yards in 2012 and 2016 respectively. So obviously Arizona's corners are weak for the time being until Patrick Peterson comes back. However, the strength for an offense against this Arizona team is throwing to that tight end position. I have plenty of exposure to Austin Hooper. At this point, this Atlanta offense is so hard to trust. Like last week, it was a slam dunk play. They put up 32 points against the Houston Texans, and Julio Jones had 3 for 42. Like that just doesn't happen. And other times against good defenses, Atlanta struggled to move the football. So there's a lot of risk with Julio here. I would actually lean the under as well, but I don't think it's going to be one I'm going to be playing over on Thrive. Looking here at the numbers, so the under would actually get you 105 points, so that is a little bit more intriguing. However, we look at Julio, and you never know when that 300-yard game's coming.
Right,
Usually it comes against Tampa Bay,
right.
But it could come at any point. But yeah, this is a dicey one. I get what the system's saying here, but I think there's a little bit of bias towards some of his 2018 numbers. We'll move over to the system says a strong under bet of the week. This one's pretty definitive, so this one is interesting. And this might catch a lot of people by surprise, just considering how darn good he has been for fantasy this season. And it's Jacksonville's DJ Chark. I believe he's a top 10 receiver right now in fantasy. He does have 5 touchdowns in as many games this season. He's coming off a great 164-yard, 2-touchdown performance. I'm looking at his numbers here. And I believe he's 80% consistent. Doing some rough calculation here, just being that the one game was a 4 for 44, which typically doesn't get you a clutch game. So he's 80% consistent on the year. Thrive has him at over 4.5 receptions. And when I look here, the over is 85 points. The under is a pretty high underdog at 115.
Yeah, I think this is one of the ones I was thinking of, and I was first I was going to pass and go, no, he's going to go over. And then I read about the fact that last week when Godwin went off against New Orleans, Marshawn Lattimore was covering Mike Evans, who went 0.0. And they said this would be a good week for D.D. Westbrook and probably not a good week for Chark. And I'm like, that under can get me 115 points. I might take the under here. So I'm going with the under. I did put it in my list, in my picks. And I think it's just because of the Lattimore and it's going to be all over Chark. And I just feel like, and this year, yes, he had that big game last week, but his receptions game by game, he's had exactly four 3 times, then 7 and 8. So, if he gets 4, you lose, unless you take the under. So I feel like if Lattimore is going to be locking in on him, they're going to be throwing the ball more to Westbrook or, using Fournette more in the run game, that Chark might not be in for a big reception game. Now, he could catch that one pass for 60 yards and a touchdown. Certainly has the speed to do it. That could happen, but we're not betting yards. We're betting catches. So 4.5, I think I'm gonna take the under.
Yep, Chark can have 4 grabs for 250 yards and 4 touchdowns, and at the end
and
of the day,
win.
The under is still a winner. I'm right there with you. You made a great point there in terms of the reception numbers. He's been very good this season, but he does have 3 games, which is the majority, where he's been under 4.5 receptions. And also, too, looking over at Sharp Football Stats over the past 2 weeks, Jacksonville and New Orleans have both been pretty. They've been pass heavy, but they've been in the bottom third of the league in terms of passing percentage, and they've been they're down at 55%. And just doing the numbers here, there's only 9 teams that have a passing rate below that. So I think this game could actually move very quickly. They're going to just want to run the football. Obviously, Jacksonville wants to run the football with Leonard Fournette, and they'll throw when they have to. And with Teddy Bridgewater in New Orleans, they're going to move the football too. And I think the Jacksonville defense is good enough to keep the game close, where both teams are going to feel like they can continue to run the football, drain that clock down. I think Chark's going to catch 4 balls, but for 115 points on Thrive, I'm going to take the under. And this is one where I feel like we can gain a little bit of an advantage. against some of our competition there. But before we wrap it up here, we'll get into our best bets of the week. So, Bob, I'll let you go first here with your slam dunk pick of the week.
Well, my slam dunk pick of the week right now, and this is assuming he's playing, which at this point he is David Johnson, 52.5 fantasy point, or I'm sorry, 52.5 fantasy points. Yes, that would be an easy under. 52.5 rushing yards. A couple reasons. Number one, the system itself says that we take the under because he's only hit, he's been under in the 3 games playing at home against an average defense. Wrong guy. Hold on. It's like, wait a minute, that's not right. Get back. Oops. Pause in the action. Sorry about that. But David Johnson, has this bad back scenario. There was talk about him not playing, and there was some concern there of whether or not he's so everybody and their mom, including me, went out and picked up Chase Edmonds, and basically with the idea that, well, okay, if we have David Johnson, then let's make sure we have the backup. But again, at home against an average rush defense, he's only hit the over 33%, which means he's hit the under 67. So that right off the bat kind of jumped out at me like, interesting. You throw in the fact that his back could lock up early in that game, and as long as he starts, you're in. And if he has a couple of rushes and that back locks up, then the 52.5 game rushing yards is easy. I think in addition to that, the fact that they're playing Atlanta, this is going to be a shootout. I mean, both defenses are very poor, and I could see David Johnson, if he stays healthy through the whole game, getting a ton of work in the passing game and them not running the ball very much at all. And so there again leads to the staying the under. So my slam dunk is David Johnson under 52.5 rushing yards.
I think the fact that he missed practice alone is going to push Chase Edmonds onto the field a little bit more in and of itself.
Right.
And the Atlanta defense isn't good by any means. I'll give you that. Carlos Hyde did have 21 carries, and he only managed 60 yards. Obviously, David Johnson is much more talented than Carlos Hyde. However, I think you're right. I think they're going to say, Kyler, just go ahead and drop back and let's sling this football around the yard. David Johnson can get 100 receiving yards, but again, we only care about the rushing yards. I'm there with you as well. I think that's a very solid bet. And then my best bet of the week is interesting because even though I can virtually almost guarantee that it will happen, I'm not committed to playing it on Thrive yet. And it is Deshaun Watson over 1.5 passing touchdowns. It is one of those where it is the heavy favorite, so you're only going to get 80 points. So my thinking is here, depending how I hate to say lineup construction, depending how my prop selection or my prop construction occurs, if I am going to get a little risky, say with the Julio under and the DJ Chark under and the David Johnson under, maybe I do take the Deshaun Watson over just to balance it out and just know at the end of the day, hey, I'm going to get that one. That's 80 points that I might not have had. With these 8 picks, from what I'm seeing on Thrive, you want to have 7 or 8 right to give yourself a fighter's chance, at least in the back end of the money. So if I'm going to take those 3 risks, I feel comfortable getting Deshaun in there. However, if I just going on, I have a lot of 100 points, a lot of 95s, a lot of 90s. Can't really afford that 80 in there. So while it is my best bet of the week, it might actually not make my top 10 selections in terms of my plays over on Thrive. So with this in mind, we do obviously have this podcast that y'all have been listening to, but we do have the full article written up, and that will be over at BigGuyFantasySports.com, and you can use promo code PropBet to get $5 off your VIP subscription. So you can not only access that, but you can also get the consistently cashing articles and all the other great content over at BigGuyFantasySports.com. And that article will have a couple other bets that we didn't necessarily talk about on here, as well as the prop bet tools best bets, a couple other of Bob's best bets, as well as some of mine as well that we haven't hinted on in this podcast. But it was good to be back here this week after a couple weeks of being a little inconsistent. We lost 100% consistency in our clutch rating there. But Bob, do you have any final words for the Week 6 action here for any of those playing props?
The other thing I can say is, as this time of year, as we start heading into the fall and winter time, make sure you check out the weather in various places. Especially if it's an outdoor stadium, that can always have an effect on the passing game, running game, those kind of things. So, it can boost the running game and knock down the passing game if it's a windy, wet, rainy. Snow has been going through the northwest already. There's a cold front coming through the northeast. They had that nor'easter going through the northeast United States there. So definitely keep an eye on the weather. That can certainly have an effect on the players and the numbers, and it could look like maybe a number is a slam dunk, and you go, wow, I can't believe that they're only having a prop bet of 20 completions for Tom Brady, but if he's playing in a bad weather, windy weather, may not be as effective. So definitely keep an eye on that as we head towards the bad weather, or focus on dome games. Go for the ones that are easier to not have to worry about. And also make sure you keep track of the London games. You remember there's a game at 9:30 a.m. So if you're playing some prop bets this week, make sure you realize that early kickoff time on Sunday.
Absolutely. All I have to say here, there's the cold front in the northeast and snow in the northwest. If you do have any questions or anything, you can always reach us on Twitter. Bob is at Bob_Lung, and I'm at Colby R. Conway. I'm actually going to be heading out here to go to the beach because it's warm here. So,
and we hate you.
Yep, that's fine. And hopefully
it's 43 here today in Canton, Ohio.
It will get to, I believe our high down here in North Carolina is 83 today. So going to sneak out to the beach, enjoy it.
Good man.
Check out some props there. But best of luck this week if you do happen to be in a Thrive contest with Bob and or myself. If you happen to beat us, shoot us a screenshot and let us know that you're checking in and you happen to beat us. I know Bob will be in that $20 or $25 one. I most likely will be as well. I believe my Thrive username is probably Colby Conway, just because nobody else ever uses that, so I just get my first and last name. So that works out quite well. But absolutely best of luck this week. Hopefully we'll see you behind us on the leaderboards, but still making money, still doing everything, and still tuning in the following week to the Prop It Like It's Hot podcast. Once again, we are a proud member of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network, and promo code PropBet will get you $5 off your VIP subscription over at Big Guy Fantasy Sports. So stay consistent. Best of luck in Week 6, and we will see you when Week 7 rolls around.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans. 30% of Americans who are planning home improvements of $5,000 or more will pay for those renovations with a high-interest credit card. That may not be a great idea. A better idea may be to take cash out of your home with a Quicken Loans 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. The rate today on our 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is 3.99%, APR 4.08%. Call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
Rate subject to change. Pay 1.25% fee to receive this discounted rate. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
If you need a job right now, then listen up. Amazon is now hiring for full-time warehouse positions in Carteret and Edison. Earn top pay rates and benefits from day one at a job you'll love with a shift that fits your life. Tap now or visit Amazon.com/EdisonJobs to apply today.